Good morning, Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're continuing our study of Esther, and we're in chapters 2 and 3 today, and we want to talk about Mordecai and Haman. So, Vashti has been removed as queen. We've talked about that. Esther is chosen to be queen, has concealed her Jewish identity per the advice of her first cousin slash father figure, Mordecai. We also talked about Mordecai and who he was, that he was a government official living in Susa, that he was something like a commissioner of the revenues. In other words, he's a GS type and he's highly placed. Um, I don't know if he's SES, but he's highly placed in the government, and so Esther's now in place, and Mordecai hangs around the palace in order to get word about Esther and her well-being. And it's not sure whether Mordecai was ever allowed to see Esther ever again when she was taken into the king's palace. He most likely would not have been. And their conversation later on it takes place by the use of a messenger back and forth. The only male person that would have been allowed to be in her presence would have been one of the eunuchs, like the one we already met, Haggai. So, but he can get word, he can find out news to make sure his daughter is okay. So he's around. And we find out at the end of chapter 2 that while he's hanging around the king's gate, he hears of a plot to assassinate Xerxes, Ahasuerus, and he makes that known, and the plot is foiled. So that's not incidental, it's key to the rest of the story, although it seems like it might just be incidental in the telling at the beginning. The King's Gate, which is going to play a role, is not just a gate that you open. That's not what the King's Gate is at all. It was a huge formal entrance into the palace, which would have encompassed around 12,000 square feet, and would have been a long, cavernous, almost entranceway. And it was a place for people to meet to transact business. It was a place for government officials to have meetings and to network. I mean, it was a busy place, and so it makes sense that if someone on the inside they were whispering about something about this plot, that he would have been in the right place at the right time. And this was written in the book of the Chronicles of the King, of the King's presence, and those who were the conspirators were hanged on the king's gallows. We got to talk about gallows as well, because what we know of as gallows, hanging someone by the neck with a noose, that didn't come into widespread practice until the 19th century. It just did not. 18th and 19th century was when that became a prominent practice. We're more than 2,000 years away from anybody being hung that way. When we read these people were impaled. They were impaled and hung for the birds, the vultures, the ravens to come eat. That's what they were. They were impaled on a pike high up so that the birds could come and eat them. That's what the gallows are. And that's what happened to the conspirators. Okay, enter Haman. After these things, chapter 3, verse 1, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and established his authority over all the princes who were with him. So he's evidently someone who is over, um, he's like a chief of staff. You have the satraps, and then you have people who are essentially members of the cabinet, viziers, who are members of the cabinet. And it sounds like Haman has been given the position of chief of staff. So he's an chief operations officer of the palace. He is not a Persian. He is an Agagite. He is an Amalekite. And King Agag was supposed to have been killed by Saul and was not. And Samuel had to kill him. And so there is bad blood between the descendants of Saul And this person left over from the old Amalekite kingdom, this person who is an ethnic Amalekite in the kingdom. And so we've got these ancient ethnic hatreds between Mordecai and Haman. Was Haman able to know when he saw Mordecai that he was a Jew? I don't know. Well, of course he did. He had to. Why did I say I don't know? He knows Mordecai is a Jew because he sets the Jews up. So we understand. I don't even know why I said that a minute ago. Is my whole point. We have said that there's this ancient hatred, and Haman is bringing this to the table at the very beginning. His hatred of the Jews. So anyway, Haman just goes out and he and Mordecai are in the same place at the same time, and Mordecai refused to prostrate himself, and that infuriated Haman. Um, anyway, so Haman plots against the Jews. Now we know it says Haman saw that Mordecai neither bowed down nor paid homage to him. He was filled with rage, but he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him who the people of Mordecai were. Therefore Haman sought to destroy all Jews, the people of Mordecai, who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. Now, if he's in government service and Mordecai's in government service, even if he is several pay grades above Mordecai, Mordecai is not supposed to prostrate himself before Haman, only the king. Depending upon their perspective levels, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly what they were. Haman clearly is at a higher level than Mordecai is. He would have had to either kissed his cheek or kissed his ring, but not prostrate himself. A common person, a slave, would have prostrated themselves, and that's what he expected because he's a twerp. I mean, Haman is such a whiner, liar. I mean, what else can we say about this despicable man? And like many men who are power adjacent, he wants to be treated like he's all that. And Mordecai did not do that. And so, like several kings before him, including Nebuchadnezzar and Artaxerxes and Darius, um, he gets manipulated into doing something he wished he hadn't done. Haman goes to King Ahasuerus, and he says, chapter 3, verse 8, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of all other people. They don't observe the king's laws, so it is not in the king's interest to let them remain. If it is pleasing to the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed, and I personally will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who carry out the king's business to put into the king's treasuries. And so he takes his signet ring and he makes this decree. Um, and and Haman doesn't even identify who the ethnic group is. Of course, there's so many. I don't know if you've kept track. If he has kept track of all the ethnic groups, it is something that we know historically that in the aftermath of his return from his failure, his campaign against the Greeks, that there were uprisings by ethnic groups. But those things were from ethnic groups in their homelands. These are people scattered throughout the kingdom, which Haman makes clear. And that would have been a difficult thing to do. But Haman says, I'll pay for it. And I'll pay for it out of my own pocket. And he talks about talents, which is a weight of silver, equivalent to about $6 million that he's going to spend personally for revenge on Mordecai and the Jews. And the king puts it into law, a law that he cannot revoke because it's against the law of the Medes and Persians. Once the king has made a decree and stamped it with a signet ring, it cannot be revoked. That's why Daniel ended up in the lion's den. And that's why Esther and Mordecai find themselves in this predicament. Well, I've taken almost 10 minutes. I won't take up that much of your time next time. Next time, we're going to talk about Mordecai and Esther and their plan to save the Jews. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes.